In the pre-dawn darkness of May 7, 2025, the fragile peace over the India-Pakistan border was shattered. Not by the familiar crackle of small arms, but by the cataclysmic roar of jet engines and the thunderous launch of missiles. The skies, once a silent expanse, erupted into a maelstrom of fire and steel. This was the beginning of India's Operation Sindoor, a meticulously planned and brutally executed campaign aimed at crippling Pakistan's military infrastructure. What unfolded over the next 4 days was not a border skirmish. It was a full-blown high-tech war, a terrifying spectacle of modern warfare that pushed two nuclear-armed rivals to the brink. For the first time in decades, the subcontinent witnessed a conflict dominated not by infantry, but by the lethal ballet of cruise missiles, sophisticated drones, and the world's most advanced fighter jets clashing in a deadly dance above the clouds. The 4-day conflict of May 2025 would forever be seared into history as a brutal showcase of air power, a harbinger of a new and terrifying era of warfare. The first wave of Operation Sindoor was a symphony of destruction. The Indian Air Force unleashed its prized assets. The roar of French-made Rafale and Russian Su-30 MKI engines tearing through the air as they screamed towards their objectives. From launch platforms deep within Indian territory, Ramos supersonic cruise missiles and Scaled stealth missiles embarked on their deadly journeys, streaking through the night sky like vengeful comets. Their targets were precise and devastating. Radar installations, command and control centers, and air defense batteries in Pakistan-controlled Punjab and Kashmir. The initial impacts were apocalyptic. Explosions blossomed like giant fiery flowers on the horizon, sending plumes of thick black smoke spiraling into the atmosphere. The very sinews of Pakistan's air defense network were targeted for decapitation. But Pakistan was not caught unprepared. Its response was swift and ferocious. The Chinese-made HQ-9 air defense system spat fire into the sky, its missiles clawing at the invading Indian aircraft. In the ensuing chaos, Pakistani J-10C fighters, armed with long-range PL-15 missiles, engaged the Indian strike packages, turning the airspace into a kill box. The first Indian losses were reported within minutes, the fiery wreckage of downed jets raining down upon the contested fields along the border, a grim testament to the lethality of modern air combat. The night was filled with the sounds of explosions, the shrill whine of missile alerts, and the desperate radio calls of pilots fighting for their lives. As the sun rose on May 8th, any hope for a swift de-escalation was obliterated. The conflict intensified, spiraling into a frenzy of aerial combat. Pakistani JF-17 Thunders and J-10C Vigor Dragons, flying low and fast to evade radar detection, unleashed volleys of long-range air-to-air missiles, seeking to wrest control of the skies from the Indian Air Force. What followed was a spectacle of air power unprecedented in modern history. More than 100 aircraft from both nations converged in a sprawling, chaotic dogfight that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. This was not the close-quarters gunfighting of past wars. It was a deadly, long-range chess match played at supersonic speeds. Missiles, guided by sophisticated radar and data links, crisscrossed the heavens, their contrails weaving a complex tapestry of death. The cockpits of these billion-dollar war machines became pressure cookers of technology and human stress, with radar warning receivers blaring incessantly as pilots performed gut-wrenching, high-G maneuvers to evade incoming threats. On the ground, a new dimension of the war was unfolding. Indian drones, loitering high above the battlefield, hunted down and destroyed Pakistani air defense positions with surgical precision. In retaliation, Pakistani drones swarmed Indian border bases, turning runways and hangars into infernos. The digital and physical battlefields had merged into one seamless, brutal reality. By May 9th, the war entered its most destructive phase. The gloves came off as both sides escalated their use of powerful cruise and ballistic missiles, transforming the conflict from a tactical air battle into a strategic bombardment campaign. India, determined to press its advantage, launched a devastating series of strikes against major Pakistani air bases, including the critical Nur Khan Air Base near the capital Rawalpindi. The attacks were designed to cripple Pakistan's ability to generate air power at its source. Pakistan's response was equally devastating. In a furious retaliation, it unleashed its newly developed FOTA tactical ballistic missiles, raining destruction upon Indian airfields and military installations in Punjab and Jammu. The border regions, once dotted with towns and villages, were now engulfed in smoke and fire. The ground shook with the constant thunder of explosions as kamikaze drones packed with explosives slammed into radar domes and fuel depots, creating massive concussive blasts that could be felt for miles. Amidst this storm of missiles and drones, the aerial combat raged on, a relentless war of attrition. The skies were a scrapyard of burning metal as aircraft on both sides were systematically hunted and destroyed. The losses mounted steadily, each downed pilot and destroyed jet representing a multi-million-dollar blow and a human tragedy, yet the fighting only grew more ferocious. May 10th marked the crescendo of this 4-day war. The conflict reached its terrifying peak as Pakistan, bruised but unbowed, launched its own major counteroffensive, codenamed Operation Sindoor. It was a massive coordinated assault involving a swarm of drones and a barrage of missiles targeting dozens of Indian forward operating bases and command centers simultaneously. The scale of the attack was staggering, a clear signal that Pakistan's war-making capacity was far from broken. India, in turn, doubled down on its own campaign, expanding Operation Sindoor to strike even deeper into Pakistani airspace, targeting strategic reserves and logistical hubs. The command centers on both sides were a hive of frantic activity, orders being shouted over the cacophony of alarms as commanders scrambled every available aircraft. This day witnessed the world's first large-scale drone war between two nuclear powers. Hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles, from small tactical quadcopters to large high-altitude surveillance platforms, clashed in the skies. They fought each other, hunted ground targets, and acted as eyes and ears for their human masters in a dizzying, complex new form of warfare. The air was thick with the digital chatter of encrypted data links and the grim reality of automated, algorithm-driven killing. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. In the late afternoon of May 10th, as the world held its breath, a ceasefire was declared. The breakthrough came after hours of frantic diplomacy and heated back-channel communications, with the United States reportedly playing a pivotal role in pulling the two nations back from the abyss. The roar of jet engines and the thunder of explosions gradually subsided, replaced by an eerie, unsettling silence. Along the border, the smoke began to clear, revealing a landscape of devastation and ruin. The cost of this brief but brutal war was immense. Both sides suffered heavy and humiliating casualties. India lost several of its most advanced fighter jets, including the prized Rafales, their wreckage a stark symbol of the conflict's intensity. Pakistan, while claiming a successful defense, saw its critical radar infrastructure and several airbases heavily damaged, a significant blow to its operational readiness. The human cost was also tragic, with civilians caught in the crossfire, their lives and homes shattered by the rain of bombs and missiles. This short, savage conflict served as a terrifying demonstration of how 21st century warfare has been fundamentally transformed. The doctrines of the past were rendered obsolete by the realities of long-range precision missiles, autonomous drone swarms, and the dominance of beyond-visual-range air combat. India proved its capability to launch deep, penetrating airstrikes into heavily defended airspace, showcasing its offensive power. Yet, Pakistan's performance demonstrated the effectiveness of a modern, integrated air defense system and the potency of a swift, symmetrical counterattack strategy. It was a war where victory was not measured in territory gained, but in systems destroyed and capabilities degraded. The ceasefire of May 10th, brokered under the shadow of potential nuclear escalation, brought a halt to the violence, but not the hostility. In the aftermath, both New Delhi and Islamabad projected an air of triumph, each claiming to have achieved its strategic objectives while inflicting unacceptable costs on the enemy. But the reality was a landscape of significant losses in irreplaceable aircraft and vital infrastructure, and a deep, prolonged period of tension that poisoned the region. Diplomatic relations plummeted to an all-time low, with meaningful dialogue replaced by a chilling silence. The 4-day war was over, but the peace that followed was colder and more fragile than ever before.